Yeah, for anyone that's listening to your podcast, you obviously have a very direct style, and you just touched on it there. You know, you wanted to extract the numbers, the value. You didn't want any fluff. You wanted there to be like that, right in that sweet zone where people can listen to it and just get like a ton of value. So, how did that go in the early days? Was that like, okay, I'm going to try and make a podcast that I would want to listen to? Like, what was the kind of the thinking behind it?
The podcast was just a way to set up an environment that was ripe for me to get what I wanted, which was data quickly, right? I'm in the lead position as the podcast host. My guest is in a position where they are already in a predispositioned spot to know that they're going to have to answer questions, right? So I have permission to sort of go and ask these questions. And the only question is how deep and how fast and how many questions can I ask in a 15-minute period? So the podcast was just the right mousetrap to sort of set up the system to like learn quickly. And that's what I was optimizing for.
But what was the kind of the end game then? I mean, were you thinking, okay, I'm just going to build this podcast and then monetize it? Or was it like, I'm going to set up an investment fund and this gives me data and like, yeah, what was the end game?
Well, look, I think a lot of sort of people that are full of hot air would say this was all tactically planned. You know, they have success and they say it was strategic. I planned it from the start. It's all bullshit, right? The best founders pivot really quick. They do things they love and then they figure out monetize later. And I was the same way. I had no idea what the podcast would turn into. Now, some things I learned since 2015 was a couple things. One, there's a lot of podcasts. So if you're not entertaining, you're going to lose, even if you're smarter than everybody else. There's a lot of very smart people that can't hold audience. And they wonder why these people like Jake Paul get all the attention, because the guy's entertaining. You have to entertain. And that earns your right to then educate. A lot of people are really bad entertainers. So the reason I've amped up the aggressiveness is because it's more entertaining. My retention metrics on the podcast go up the more controversial an episode is. So I will always be and always try and be more direct, shorter, and more to the point.